Sahih al-Bukhari fasting. Sahih al-Bukhari fasting narrated Talha bin Ubaidullah. A Bedouin with unkempt hair came to Allah's Messenger and said, O Allah's Messenger, inform me what Allah has made compulsory for me as regards the prayers. He replied, you have to offer perfectly the 5 compulsory prayers in a day and night, 24 hours, unless you want to pray nawafil. The Bedouin further asked, inform me what Allah has made compulsory for me as regards fasting. He replied, you have to fast during the whole month of Ramadan, unless you want to fast more as nawafil. The Bedouin further asked, tell me how much zakat Allah has enjoined on me. Thus, Allah's Messenger informed him about all the rules, that is fundamentals, of Islam. The Bedouin then said, by him who has honored you, I will neither perform any nawafil nor will I decrease what Allah has enjoined on me. Allah's Messenger said, if he is saying the truth, he will succeed, or he will be granted paradise. Sahih al-Bukhari 1891 Reference 30 Hadith 1. Sahih al-Bukhari fasting narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet observed the fast on the 10th of Muharram, Ashura, and ordered Muslims to fast on that day. But when the fasting of the month of Ramadan was prescribed, the fasting of the Ashura was abandoned. Abdullah did not use to fast on that day unless it coincided with his routine fasting by chance. Sahih al-Bukhari 1892 Reference 30 Hadith 2. Sahih al-Bukhari fasting narrated Aisha sad face. The tribe of Quraysh used to fast on the day of Ashura in the pre-Islamic period, and then Allah's Apostle ordered Muslims to fast on it till the fasting in the month of Ramadan was prescribed. Whereupon the Prophet said, he who wants to fast on Ashura may fast, and he who does not want to fast may not fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1893 Reference 30 Hadith 3. Sahih al-Bukhari fasting narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, fasting is a shield, or a screen or a shelter. So, the person observing fasting should avoid sexual relation with his wife and should not behave foolishly and impudently, and if somebody fights with him or abuses him, he should tell him twice, I am fasting. The Prophet added, by him in whose hands my soul is, the smell coming out from the mouth of a fasting person is better in the sight of Allah than the smell of musk. Allah says about the fasting person, he has left his food, drink and desires for my sake. The fast is for me. So I will reward the fasting person for it, and the reward of good deeds is multiplied 10 times. Sahih al-Bukhari 1894 Reference 30 Hadith 4. Sahih al-Bukhari fasting narrated Abu Wail from Hadiths. Umar asked the people, who remembers the narration of the Prophet about the affliction. Hadiths said, I heard the Prophet saying, the affliction of a person in his property, family and neighbors is expiated by his prayers, fasting, and giving in charity. Umar said, I do not ask about that, but I ask about those afflictions which will spread like the waves of the sea. Hadiths replied, there is a closed gate in front of those afflictions. Umar asked, will that gate be opened or broken? He replied, it will be broken. Umar said, then the gate will not be closed again till the day of resurrection. We said to Masruq, would you ask Hadiths whether Umar knew what that gate symbolized? He asked him and he replied Umar, knew it as one knows that there will be night before tomorrow morning. Sahih al-Bukhari 1895 Reference 30 Hadith 5. Sahih al-Bukhari fasting narrated Saul. The Prophet said, there is a gate in paradise called Ar-Rayyan, and those who observe fasts will enter through it on the day of resurrection, and none except them will enter through it. It will be said, where are those who used to observe fasts? They will get up, and none except them will enter through it. After their entry the gate will be closed and nobody will enter through it. Sahih al-Bukhari 1896 Reference 30 Hadith 6. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, whoever gives two kinds of things or property in charity for Allah's cause will be called from the gates of paradise and will be addressed, O slaves of Allah. Here is prosperity. So, whoever was amongst the people who used to offer their prayers will be called from the gate of the prayer. And whoever was amongst the people who used to participate in jihad will be called from the gate of jihad. And whoever was amongst those who used to observe fasts will be called from the gate of Ar-Rayyan. Whoever was amongst those who used to give in charity will be called from the gate of charity. Abu Bakr said, let my parents be sacrificed for you, O Allah's Messenger. No distress or need will befall him who will be called from those gates. Will there be anyone who will be called from all these gates? The Prophet replied, yes, and I hope you will be one of them. Sahih al-Bukhari 1897 Reference 30 Hadith 7. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, when Ramadan begins, the gates of paradise are opened. Sahih al-Bukhari 1898 Reference 30 Hadith 8. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, when the month of Ramadan starts, the gates of the heaven are opened and the gates of hell are closed and the devils are chained. Sahih al-Bukhari 1899 Reference 30 Hadith 9. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Umar. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, when you see the crescent of the month of Ramadan, start fasting, and when you see the crescent of the month of Shawwal, stop fasting. And if the sky is overcast, and you can't see it, then regard the month of Ramadan as of 30 days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1900 Reference 30 Hadith 10. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, whoever established prayers on the night of Qadr out of sincere faith and hoping for a reward from Allah, then all his previous sins will be forgiven. And whoever fasts in the month of Ramadan out of sincere faith, and hoping for a reward from Allah, then all his previous sins will be forgiven. Sahih al-Bukhari 1901 Reference 30 Hadith 11. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet was the most generous amongst the people, and he used to be more so in the month of Ramadan when Gabriel visited him, and Gabriel used to meet him on every night of Ramadan till the end of the month. The Prophet used to recite the Holy Quran to Gabriel, and when Gabriel met him, he used to be more generous than a fast wind, which causes rain and welfare. Sahih al-Bukhari 1902 Reference 30 Hadith 12. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, whoever does not give up forged speech and evil actions, Allah is not in need of his leaving his food and drink. That is, Allah will not accept his fasting. Sahih al-Bukhari 1903 Reference 30 Hadith 13. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, Allah said, all the deeds of Adam's sons, people, are for them, except fasting which is for me, and I will give the reward for it. Fasting is a shield or protection from the fire and from committing sins. If one of you is fasting, he should avoid sexual relation with his wife and quarreling, and if somebody should fight or quarrel with him, he should say, I am fasting. By him in whose hands my soul is, the unpleasant smell coming out from the mouth of a fasting person is better in the sight of Allah than the smell of musk. There are two pleasures for the fasting person, one at the time of breaking his fast, and the other at the time when he will meet his Lord. Then he will be pleased because of his fasting. Sahih al-Bukhari 1904 reference 30 Hadith 14. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Alqamah. While I was walking with Abdullah, he said, we were in the company of the Prophet, and he said, he who can afford to marry should marry, because it will help him refrain from looking at other women, and save his private parts from committing illegal sexual relation. And he who cannot afford to marry is advised to fast, as fasting will diminish his sexual power. Sahih al-Bukhari 1905 reference 30 Hadith 15. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abdullah bin Umar. Allah's Messenger mentioned Ramadan and said, do not fast unless you see the crescent of Ramadan, and do not give up fasting till you see the crescent of Shawwal. But if the sky is overcast, if you cannot see it, then act on estimation. That is, count Shaban as 30 days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1906 reference 30 Hadith 16. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abdullah bin Umar. Allah's Messenger said, the month can be 29 nights, that is days. And do not fast till you see the moon, and if the sky is overcast, then complete Shaban as 30 days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1907 reference 30 Hadith 17. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, the month is like this and this. At the same time he showed the fingers of both his hands thrice, and left out one thumb on the third time. Sahih al-Bukhari 1908 reference 30 Hadith 18. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet or Abul Qasim said, start fasting on seeing the crescent of Ramadan, and give up fasting on seeing the crescent of Shawwal. And if the sky is overcast, and you cannot see it, complete 30 days of Shaban. Sahih al-Bukhari 1909 reference 30 Hadith 19. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Salama. The Prophet vowed to keep aloof from his wives for a period of 1 month, and after the completion of 29 days he went either in the morning or in the afternoon to his wives. Someone said to him, you vowed that you would not go to your wives for 1 month. He replied, the month is of 29 days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1910 reference 30 Hadith 20. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Anas. Allah's Messenger vowed to keep aloof from his wives for 1 month, and he had dislocation of his leg. So, he stayed in a mashruba for 29 nights and then came down. Some people said, O Allah's Messenger, you vowed to stay aloof for 1 month. He replied, the month is of 29 days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1911 reference 30 Hadith 21. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Bakr. The Prophet said, the 2 months of Eid, that is Ramadan and Dhul Hijjah, do not decrease in superiority. Sahih al-Bukhari 1912 reference 30 Hadith 22. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, we are an illiterate nation. We neither write nor know accounts. The month is like this and this, that is sometimes of 29 days and sometimes of 30 days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1913 reference 30 Hadith 23. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, none of you should fast a day or 2 before the month of Ramadan unless he has the habit of fasting, nawafil, and if his fasting coincides with that day, then he can fast that day. Sahih al-Bukhari 1914 reference 30 Hadith 24. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated al-Bara. It was the custom among the companions of Muhammad, peace be upon him, that if any of them was fasting and the food was presented, for breaking his fast, but he slept before eating, he would not eat that night and the following day till sunset. Qais bin Surma al-Ansari was fasting and came to his wife at the time of iftar, breaking one's fast, and asked her whether she had anything to eat. She replied, "No, but I would go and bring some for you." He used to do hard work during the day, so he was overwhelmed by sleep and slept. When his wife came and saw him, she said, "Disappointment for you." When it was midday on the following day, he fainted and the Prophet was informed about the whole matter, and the following verses were revealed. "You are permitted to go to your wives, for sexual relation, at the night of fasting." So, they were overjoyed by it. And then Allah also revealed, "And eat and drink until the white thread of dawn appears to you distinct from the black thread." Of Sahih al-Bukhari 1915 reference 30 Hadith 25. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting the night. 2.187. Sahih al-Bukhari 1915 reference 30 Hadith 25. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Adi bin Hatim. When the above verses were revealed, "Until the white thread appears to you, distinct from the black thread, I took 2 hair strings, one black and the other white, and kept them under my pillow and went on looking at them throughout the night but could not make anything out of it. So, the next morning I went to Allah's Messenger and told him the whole story. He explained to me, that verse means the darkness of the night and the whiteness of the dawn." Sahih al-Bukhari 1916 reference 30 Hadith 26. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Sahl bin Saud. When the following verses were revealed, "Eat and drink until the white thread appears to you, distinct from the black thread, and of dawn was not revealed. Some people who intended to fast tied black and white threads to their legs and went on eating till they differentiated between the two. Allah then revealed the words of dawn, and it became clear that meant night and day." Sahih al-Bukhari 1917 reference 30 Hadith 27. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Aisha. Bilal used to pronounce the adhan at night, so Allah's Messenger said, "Carry on taking your meals, eat and drink, till Ibn Maktum pronounces the adhan, for he does not pronounce it till it is dawn." Sahih al-Bukhari 1918, 1919 reference 30 Hadith 28. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Sahl bin Sa'di. I used to take my Sahur meals with my family and then hurry up for presenting myself for the Fajr prayer with Allah's Messenger. Sahih al-Bukhari 1920 reference 30 Hadith 29. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Anas. Zayd bin Thabit said, "We took the Sahur with the Prophet. Then he stood for the prayer. I asked, what was the interval between the Sahur and the Adhan? He replied, the interval was sufficient to recite 50 verses of the Quran." Sahih al-Bukhari 1921 reference 30 Hadith 30. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Abdullah. The Prophet fasted for days continuously. The people also did the same, but it was difficult for them. So, the Prophet forbade them to fast continuously for more than one day. They slid, "But you fast without break. No food was taken in the evening or in the morning." The Prophet replied, "I am not like you, for I am provided with food and drink, by Allah." Sahih al-Bukhari 1922 reference 30 Hadith 31. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, "Take Sahur as there is a blessing in it." Sahih al-Bukhari 1923 reference 30 Hadith 32. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Salama bin al-Aqwa. Once the Prophet ordered a person on Ashura, the 10th of Muharram, to announce, "Whoever has eaten, should not eat any more, but fast, and who has not eaten should not eat, but complete his fast." till the end of the day. Sahih al-Bukhari 1924 reference 30 Hadith 33. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha and Salama. At times Allah's Messenger used to get up in the morning in the state of janaba after having sexual relations with his wives. He would then take a bath and fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1925, 1926 reference 30 Hadith 34. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha. The Prophet used to kiss and embrace his wives while he was fasting, and he had more power to control his desires than any of you. Said Habir, the person who gets discharge after casting a look on his wife should complete his fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1927 reference 30 Hadith 35. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Hisham's father. Aisha said, Allah's Messenger used to kiss some of his wives while he was fasting, and then she smiled. Sahih al-Bukhari 1928 reference 30 Hadith 36. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Zainab's sad face, daughter of Salama, that her mother said, while I was lying with Allah's Messenger underneath a woolen sheet, I got the menstruation, and then slipped away and put on the clothes, which I used to wear in menses. He asked, What is the matter? Did you get your menses? I replied in the affirmative and then entered underneath that woolen sheet. I and Allah's Messenger used to take a bath from one water pot and he used to kiss me while he was fasting. Sahih al-Bukhari 1929 reference 30 Hadith 37. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha's sad face. At times, in Ramadan the Prophet used to take a bath in the morning not because of a wet dream and would continue his fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1930 reference 30 Hadith 38. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Bakr bin Abdurrahman. My father and I went to Aisha and she said, I testify that Allah's Messenger at times used to get up in the morning in a state of janaba from sexual intercourse, not from a wet dream, and then he would fast that day. Then he went to Salama and she also narrated a similar thing. Sahih al-Bukhari 1931, 1932 reference 30 Hadith 39. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, If somebody eats or drinks forgetfully then he should complete his fast, for what he has eaten or drunk has been given to him by Allah. Sahih al-Bukhari 1933 reference 30 Hadith 40. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Humran. I saw Uthman performing ablution. He washed his hands thrice, rinsed his mouth and then washed his nose, by putting water in it and then blowing it out, and washed his face thrice, and then washed his right forearm up to the elbow thrice, and then the left forearm up to the elbow thrice, then smeared his head with water, washed his right foot thrice, and then his left foot thrice and said, I saw Allah's apostle performing ablution similar to my present ablution, and then he said, Whoever performs ablution like my present ablution and then offers 2 rakat in which he does not think of worldly things, all his previous sins will be forgiven. Sahih al-Bukhari 1934 reference 30 Hadith 41. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha. A man came to the Prophet and said that he had been burnt, ruined. The Prophet asked him what was the matter. He replied, I had sexual intercourse with my wife in Ramadan, while I was fasting. Then a basket full of dates was brought to the Prophet and he asked, Where is the burnt, ruined man? He replied, I am present. The Prophet told him to give that basket in charity, as expiation. Sahih al-Bukhari 1935 reference 30 Hadith 42. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. While we were sitting with the Prophet, a man came and said, O Allah's Messenger, I have been ruined. Allah's Messenger asked what was the matter with him. He replied, I had sexual intercourse with my wife while I was fasting. Allah's Messenger asked him, Can you afford to manumit a slave? He replied in the negative. Allah's Messenger asked him, Can you fast for 2 successive months? He replied in the negative. The Prophet asked him, Can you afford to feed 60 poor persons? He replied in the negative. The Prophet kept silent, and while we were in that state, a big basket full of dates was brought to the Prophet. He asked, Where is the questioner? He replied, I am here. The Prophet said to him, Take this basket of dates and give it in charity. The man said, Should I give it to a person poorer than I? By Allah, there is no family between its, that is Madinah's, 2 mountains who are poorer than I. The Prophet smiled till his premolar teeth became visible. Sahih al-Bukhari 1936 reference 30 Hadith 43. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting and then said, Feed your family with it. Sahih al-Bukhari 1936 reference 30 Hadith 43. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Abu Hurairah. A man came to the Prophet and said, I had sexual intercourse with my wife on Ramadan, while fasting. The Prophet asked him, Can you afford to manumit a slave? He replied in the negative. The Prophet asked him, Can you fast for 2 successive months? He replied in the negative. He asked him, Can you afford to feed 60 poor persons? He replied in the negative. Abu Hurairah added, Then a basket full of dates was brought to the Prophet, and he said, To that man, feed poor people, with this by way of atonement. He said, Should I feed it to poorer people than we? There is no poorer house than ours between its, Madinah's, mountains. The Prophet said, Then feed your family with it. Sahih al-Bukhari 1937 reference 30 Hadith 44. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet was cupped while he was in the state of al-Ihram, and also while he was observing a fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1938 reference 30 Hadith 45. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet was cupped while he was fasting. Sahih al-Bukhari 1939 reference 30 Hadith 46. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Thabit al-Bunani. Anas bin Malik was asked whether they disliked the cupping for a fasting person. He replied in the negative and said, Only if it causes weakness. Sahih al-Bukhari 1940 reference 30 Hadith 47. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Ibn Abi Awfa. We were in the company of Allah's Messenger on a journey. He said to a man, Get down and mix sa'ik, powdered barley, with water for me. The man said, The sun has not set yet, O Allah's Messenger. The Prophet again said to him, Get down and mix sa'ik with water for me. The man again said, O Allah's Messenger, the sun. The Prophet said to him, for the 3rd time, Get down and mix sa'ik with water for me. The man dismounted and mixed sa'ik with water for him. The Prophet drank it and then beckoned with his hand, towards the east, and said, When you see the night falling from this side, then a fasting person should break his fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1941 reference 30 Hadith 48. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Aisha. Hamza bin Amr al-Aslami said, O Allah's Messenger, I fast continuously. Sahih al-Bukhari 1942 reference 30 Hadith 49. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Aisha sad face. The wife of the Prophet. Hamza bin Amr al-Aslami asked the Prophet, "Should I fast while traveling?" The Prophet replied, "You may fast if you wish, and you may not fast if you wish." Sahih al-Bukhari 1943 Reference 30 Hadith 50. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Abbas. Allah's Messenger set out for Mecca in Ramadan and he fasted, and when he reached Al-Qadid, he broke his fast and the people, with him, broke their fast too. Abu Abdullah said, Al-Qadid is a land covered with water between Usfan and Qudayd. Sahih al-Bukhari 1944 Reference 30 Hadith 51. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu ad-Darda. We set out with Allah's Messenger on one of his journeys on a very hot day, and it was so hot that one had to put his hand over his head because of the severity of heat. None of us was fasting except the Prophet and Ibn Rawaha. Sahih al-Bukhari 1945 Reference 30 Hadith 52. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Habir bin Abdullah. Allah's Messenger was on a journey and saw a crowd of people, and a man was being shaded by them. He asked, "What is the matter?" They said, the man, is fasting. The Prophet said, "It is not righteousness that you fast on a journey." Sahih al-Bukhari 1946 Reference 30 Hadith 53. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Anas bin Malik. We used to travel with the Prophet and neither did the fasting persons criticize those who were not fasting, nor did those who were not fasting criticize the fasting ones. Sahih al-Bukhari 1947 Reference 30 Hadith 54. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Tawus. Ibn Abbas said, Allah's Messenger set out from Medina to Mecca and he fasted till he reached Usfan, where he asked for water and raised his hand to let the people see him, and then broke the fast, and did not fast after that till he reached Mecca, and that happened in Ramadan. Ibn Abbas used to say, Allah's Messenger, sometimes, fasted and, sometimes, did not fast during the journeys, so whoever wished to fast could fast, and whoever wished not to fast, could do so. Sahih al-Bukhari 1948 Reference 30 Hadith 55. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Nafi. Ibn Umar recited the verse. They had a choice either to fast or to feed a poor person for every day, and said that the order of this verse was cancelled. Sahih al-Bukhari 1949 Reference 30 Hadith 56. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha. Sometimes I missed some days of Ramadan, but could not fast in lieu of them except in the month of Shaban. Said Yahya, a sub-narrator, she used to be busy serving the Prophet. Sahih al-Bukhari 1950 Reference 30 Hadith 57. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Sa'id. The Prophet said, Isn't it true that a woman does not pray and does not fast on menstruating? And that is the defect, a loss, in her religion. Sahih al-Bukhari 1951 Reference 30 Hadith 58. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha. Allah's Messenger said, Whoever died and he ought to have fasted the missed days of Ramadan, then his guardians must fast on his behalf. Sahih al-Bukhari 1952 Reference 30 Hadith 59. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Abbas. A man came to the Prophet and said, O Allah's Messenger, my mother died and she ought to have fasted 1 month, for her missed Ramadan. Shall I fast on her behalf? The Prophet replied in the affirmative and said, Allah's debts have more right to be paid. In another narration a woman is reported to have said, My sister died. Narrated Ibn Abbas. A woman said to the Prophet, My mother died and she had vowed to fast but she didn't fast. In another narration Ibn Abbas is reported to have said, A woman said to the Prophet, My mother died while she ought to have fasted for 15 days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1953 reference 30 Hadith 60. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Umar bin al-Khattab. Allah's Messenger said, when night falls from this side and the day vanishes from this side and the sun sets, then the fasting person should break his fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1954 reference 30 Hadith 61. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abdullah bin Abi Awfa. We were in the company of the Prophet on a journey and he was fasting, and when the sun set, he addressed somebody, "O so-and-so, get up and mix sa'ik with water for us." He replied, "O Allah's Apostle, will you wait till it is evening?" The Prophet said, "Get down and mix sa'ik with water for us." He replied, "O Allah's Messenger, if you wait till it is evening." The Prophet said again, "Get down and mix sa'ik with water for us." He replied, "It is still daytime." 1. The Prophet said again, "Get down and mix sa'ik with water for us." He got down and mixed sa'ik for them. The Prophet drank it and then said, when you see night falling from this side, the fasting person should break his fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1955 reference 30 Hadith 62. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abdullah bin Abi Awfa. We were traveling with Allah's Messenger and he was fasting, and when the sun set, he said to someone, "Get down and mix sa'ik with water for us." He replied, "O Allah's Messenger, will you wait till it is evening?" The Prophet again said, "Get down and mix sa'ik with water for us." He replied, "O Allah's Messenger, it is still daytime." The Prophet said again, "Get down and mix sa'ik with water for us." So, he got down and carried out that order. The Prophet then said, when you see night falling from this side, the fasting person should break his fast, and he beckoned with his finger towards the east. Sahih al-Bukhari 1956 reference 30 Hadith 63. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Sahl bin Sa'di. Allah's Messenger said, the people will remain on the right path as long as they hasten the breaking of the fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1957 reference 30 Hadith 64. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Abi Awfa. I was with the Prophet on a journey, and he observed the fast till evening. The Prophet said to a man, "Get down and mix sa'ik with water for me." He replied, "Will you wait till it is evening?" The Prophet said, "Get down and mix sa'ik with water for me. When you see night falling from this side, the fasting person should break his fast." Sahih al-Bukhari 1958 reference 30 Hadith 65. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Usama from Hisham bin Urwa from Fatima. Asma bint Abi Bakr said, we broke our fast during the lifetime of the Prophet on a cloudy day and then the sun appeared. Hisham was asked, were they ordered to fast in lieu of that day? He replied, it had to be made up for. Ma'mar said, I heard Hisham saying, I don't know whether they fasted in lieu of that day or not. Sahih al-Bukhari 1959 reference 30 Hadith 66. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ar Rubi bint Muawad. The Prophet sent a messenger to the village of the Ansar in the morning of the day of Ashura, 10th of Muharram, to announce, whoever has eaten something should not eat but complete the fast, and whoever is observing the fast should complete it. She further said, since then we used to fast on that day regularly and also make our boys fast. We used to make toys of wool for the boys, and if any one of them cried for, he was given those toys till it was the time of the breaking of the fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1960 reference 30 Hadith 67. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Anas. The Prophet said, do not practice al-Wisl, fasting continuously without breaking one's fast in the evening or eating before the following dawn. The people said to the Prophet, "But you practice al-wisl?" The Prophet replied, "I am not like any of you, for I am given food and drink, by Allah, during the night." Sahih al-Bukhari 1961 reference 30 Hadith 68. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abdullah bin Umar. Allah's Messenger forbade al-wisl. The people said to him, "But you practice it?" He said, "I am not like you, for I am given food and drink by Allah." Sahih al-Bukhari 1962 reference 30 Hadith 69. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Sa'id that he had heard the Prophet saying, "Do not fast continuously, practice al-wisl, and if you intend to lengthen your fast, then carry it on only till the Sahur, before the following dawn." The people said to him, "But you practice al-wisl, O Allah's Messenger." He replied, "I am not similar to you, for during my sleep I have one who makes me eat and drink." Sahih al-Bukhari 1963 reference 30 Hadith 70. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha. Allah's Messenger forbade al-wisl out of mercy to them. They said to him, "But you practice al-wisl?" He said, "I am not similar to you, for my Lord gives me food and drink." Sahih al-Bukhari 1964 reference 30 Hadith 71. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Hurairah. Allah's Messenger forbade al-wisl in fasting. So, one of the Muslims said to him, "But you practice al-wisl, O Allah's Messenger." The Prophet replied, "Who amongst you is similar to me? I am given food and drink during my sleep by my Lord." So, when the people refused to stop al-wisl, fasting continuously, the Prophet fasted day and night continuously along with them for a day and then another day, and then they saw the crescent moon of the month of Shawwal. The Prophet said to them, angrily, "If it, the crescent, had not appeared, I would have made you fast for a longer period." That was as a punishment for them when they refused to stop practicing al-wisl. Sahih al-Bukhari 1965 reference 30 Hadith 72. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said twice, "O you people, be cautious. Do not practice al-wisl." The people said to him, "But you practice al-wisl?" The Prophet replied, "My Lord gives me food and drink during my sleep. Do that much of deeds which is within your ability." Sahih al-Bukhari 1966 reference 30 Hadith 73. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Allah's Messenger said, "Do not fast continuously day and night, practice al-wisl, and if any one of you intends to fast continuously day and night, he should continue till the Sahur time." They said, "But you practice al-wisl, O Allah's Messenger." The Prophet said, "I am not similar to you. During my sleep I have one who makes me eat and drink." Sahih al-Bukhari 1967 reference 30 Hadith 74. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Juhayfa. The Prophet made a bond of brotherhood between Salman and Abu ad-Darda. Salman paid a visit to Abu ad-Darda and found ad-Darda dressed in shabby clothes and asked her why she was in that state. She replied, "Your brother Abu ad-Darda is not interested in the luxuries of this world." In the meantime, Abu ad-Darda came and prepared a meal for Salman. Salman requested Abu ad-Darda to eat with him, but Abu ad-Darda said, "I am fasting." Salman said, "I am not going to eat unless you eat." So, Abu ad-Darda ate with Salman. When it was night and a part of the night passed, Abu ad-Darda got up to offer the night prayer. But Salman told him to sleep and Abu ad-Darda slept. After some time Abu ad-Darda again got up, but Salman told him to sleep. When it was the last hours of the night, Salman told him to get up then, and both of them offered the prayer. Salman told Abu ad-Darda, "Your Lord has a right on you, your soul has a right on you, and your family has a right." Sahih al-Bukhari 1968 reference 30 Hadith 75. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting on you, so you should give the rights of all those who has a right on you. Abu ad-Darda came to the Prophet and narrated the whole story. The Prophet said, "Salman has spoken the truth." Sahih al-Bukhari 1968 reference 30 Hadith 75. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Aisha. Allah's Messenger used to fast till one would say that he would never stop fasting, and he would abandon fasting till one would say that he would never fast. I never saw Allah's Messenger fasting for a whole month except the month of Ramadan, and did not see him fasting in any month more than in the month of Shaban. Sahih al-Bukhari 1969 reference 30 Hadith 76. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Aisha. The Prophet never fasted in any month more than in the month of Shaban. He used to say, "Do those deeds which you can do easily, as Allah will not get tired of giving rewards, till you get bored and tired of performing religious deeds." The most beloved prayer to the Prophet was the one that was done regularly, throughout the life, even if it were little. And whenever the Prophet offered a prayer, he used to offer it regularly. Sahih al-Bukhari 1970 reference 30 Hadith 77. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet never fasted a full month except the month of Ramadan, and he used to fast till one could say, "By Allah, he will never stop fasting," and he would abandon fasting till one would say, "By Allah, he will never fast." Sahih al-Bukhari 1971 reference 30 Hadith 78. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Anas. Allah's Messenger used to leave fasting in a certain month till we thought that he would not fast in that month, and he used to fast in another month till we thought he would not stop fasting at all in that month. And if one wanted to see him praying at night, one could see him in that condition, and if one wanted to see him sleeping at night, one could see him in that condition, too. Sahih al-Bukhari 1972 reference 30 Hadith 79. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Humayd. I asked Anas about the fasting of the Prophet. He said, "Whenever I liked to see the Prophet fasting in any month, I could see that, and whenever I liked to see him not fasting, I could see that too, and if I liked to see him praying in any night, I could see that, and if I liked to see him sleeping, I could see that, too." Anas further said, "I never touched silk or velvet softer than the hand of Allah's Messenger, and never smelled musk or perfumed smoke more pleasant than the smell of Allah's Messenger." Sahih al-Bukhari 1973 reference 30 Hadith 80. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As. Once Allah's Messenger came to me, and then he narrated the whole narration, that is, your guest has a right on you, and your wife has a right on you. I then asked about the fasting of David. The Prophet replied, "Half of the year, that is, he used to fast on every alternate day." Sahih al-Bukhari 1974 reference 30 Hadith 81. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As. Allah's Messenger said to me, "O Abdullah, have I not been informed that you fast during the day and offer prayers all the night?" Abdullah replied, "Yes, O Allah's Messenger." The Prophet said, "Don't do that. Fast for few days and then give it up for few days, offer prayers and also sleep at night, as your body has a right on you, and your wife has a right on you, and your guest has a right on you. And it is sufficient for you to fast 3 days in a month, as the reward of a good deed is multiplied 10 times, so it will be like fasting throughout the year. I insisted on fasting, and so I was given a hard instruction. I said, O Allah's Messenger, I have power. The Prophet said, fast like the fasting of the Prophet David and do not fast more than that. I said, how was the fasting of the Prophet of Allah, David? He said, half of the year, that is, he used to fast on every alternate day. Afterwards, when Abdullah became old, he used to say, it would Sahih al-Bukhari 1975 reference 30 Hadith 82. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting have been better for me if I had accepted the permission of the Prophet, which he gave me, that is to fast only 3 days a month. Sahih al-Bukhari 1975 reference 30 Hadith 82. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Abdullah bin Amr. Allah's Messenger was informed that I had taken an oath to fast daily and to pray every night, all the night throughout my life. So Allah's Messenger came to me and asked whether it was correct. I replied, let my parents be sacrificed for you. I said so. The Prophet said, you cannot do that. So, fast for few days and give it up for few days, offer salat, prayer, and sleep. Fast 3 days a month as the reward of good deeds is multiplied 10 times, and that will be equal to 1 year of fasting. The Prophet said to me, fast 1 day and give up fasting for 2 days. I replied, I can do better than that. The Prophet said to me, fast 1 day and give up fasting for a day, and that is the fasting of Prophet David, and that is the best fasting. I said, I have the power to fast better, more, than that. The Prophet said, there is no better fasting than that. Sahih al-Bukhari 1976 reference 30 Hadith 83. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Abdullah bin Amr. The news of my daily fasting and praying every night throughout the night reached the Prophet. So he sent for me, or I met him, and he said, I have been informed that you fast every day and pray every night, all the night. Fast, for some days, and give up fasting, for some days, pray and sleep, for your eyes have a right on you, and your body and your family, that is wife, have a right on you. I replied, I have more power than that, fasting. The Prophet said, then fast like the fasts of the Prophet David. I said, how? He replied, he used to fast on alternate days, and he used not to flee on meeting the enemy. I said, from where can I get that chance? Atta said, I do not know how the expression of fasting daily throughout the life occurred. So, the Prophet said, twice, whoever fasts daily throughout his life is just as the one who does not fast at all. Sahih al-Bukhari 1977 reference 30 Hadith 84. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Mujahid from Abdullah bin Amr. The Prophet said, to Abdullah, fast 3 days a month. Abdullah said, to the Prophet, I am able to fast more than that. They kept on arguing on this matter till the Prophet said, fast on alternate days, and recite the whole Quran once a month. Abdullah said, I can recite more, in a month. And the argument went on till the Prophet said, recite the Quran once each 3 days. That is, you must not recite the whole Quran in less than 3 days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1978 reference 30 Hadith 85. Sahih al-Bukhari, fasting narrated Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As. The Prophet said to me, you fast daily all the year and pray every night all the night? I replied in the affirmative. The Prophet said, if you keep on doing this, your eyes will become weak and your body will get tired. He who fasts all the year is as he who did not fast at all. The fasting of 3 days, a month, will be equal to the fasting of the whole year. I replied, I have the power for more than this. The Prophet said, then fast like the fasting of David, who used to fast on alternate days and would never flee from the battlefield, on meeting the enemy. Sahih al-Bukhari 1979 reference 30 Hadith 86. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abdullah bin Amr. Allah's Messenger was informed about my fasts, and he came to me and I spread for him a leather cushion stuffed with palm fires, but he sat on the ground and the cushion remained between me and him. And then he said, "Isn't it sufficient for you to fast 3 days a month?" I replied, "O Allah's Apostle, I can fast more." He said, 5? I replied, "O Allah's Messenger, I can fast more." He said, 7? I replied, "O Allah's Messenger, I can fast more." He said, 9 days per month. I replied, "O Allah's Messenger, I can fast more." He said, 11 days per month. And then the Prophet said, "There is no fast superior to that of the Prophet David. It was for half of the year. So, fast on alternate days." Sahih al-Bukhari 1980 reference 30 Hadith 87. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. My friend, the Prophet, advised me to observe 3 things. 1. To fast 3 days a month. 2. To pray 2 rakat of duha prayer, forenoon prayer. And 3. To pray witr before sleeping. Sahih al-Bukhari 1981 reference 30 Hadith 88. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Anas. The Prophet paid a visit to Sulaim and she placed before him dates and ghee. The Prophet said, "Replace the ghee and dates in their respective containers, for I am fasting." Then he stood somewhere in her house and offered an optional prayer, and then he invoked good on Sulaim and her family. Then Sulaim said, "O Allah's Messenger, I have a special request today." He said, "What is it?" She replied, "Please invoke for your servant Anas." So Allah's Messenger did not leave anything good in the world or the hereafter which he did not invoke Allah to bestow on me, and said, "O Allah, give him, that is Anas, property and children, and bless him. Thus I am one of the richest among the Ansar, and my daughter Umayna told me that when al-Hajjaj came to Basra, more than 120 of my offspring had been buried." Sahih al-Bukhari 1982 reference 30 Hadith 89. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Mutarif from Imran ibn Husayn. That the Prophet asked him, Imran, or asked a man, and Imran was listening, "O Abu so-and-so, have you fasted the last days of this month?" The narrator thought that he said, "The month of Ramadan." The man replied, "No, O Allah's Messenger." The Prophet said to him, "When you finish your fasting of Ramadan, fast 2 days, in Shawwal." Through another series of narrators, Imran said, the Prophet said, "Have you fasted the last days of Shaban?" Sahih al-Bukhari 1983 reference 30 Hadith 90. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Muhammad peace be upon him bin Abbas. I asked Habir, did the Prophet forbid fasting on Fridays? He replied, yes. Other narrators added, if he intends to fast only that day. Sahih al-Bukhari 1984 reference 30 Hadith 91. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. I heard the Prophet saying, none of you should fast on Friday unless he fasts a day before or after it. Sahih al-Bukhari 1985 reference 30 Hadith 92. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Ayyub from Jawariya bint al-Harith. The Prophet visited her, Jawariya, on a Friday, and she was fasting. He asked her, did you fast yesterday? She said, number. He said, do you intend to fast tomorrow? She said, number. He said, then break your fast. Through another series of narrators, Abu Ayyub is reported to have said, he ordered her and she broke her fast. Sahih al-Bukhari 1986 reference 30 Hadith 93. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Alqamah. I asked Aisha, did Allah's Apostle used to choose some special days for fasting? She replied, no, but he used to be regular, constant, in his service of worshipping. Who amongst you can endure what Allah's Messenger used to endure? Sahih al-Bukhari 1987 Reference 30 Hadith 94. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated al-Fadl bint al-Harith. While the people were with me on the day of Arafat, they differed as to whether the Prophet was fasting or not. Some said that he was fasting, while others said that he was not fasting. So, I sent to him a bowl full of milk while he was riding over his camel, and he drank it. Sahih al-Bukhari 1988 Reference 30 Hadith 95. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Maimuna. The people doubted whether the Prophet was fasting on the day of Arafat or not, so I sent milk while he was standing at Arafat. He drank it and the people were looking at him. Sahih al-Bukhari 1989 Reference 30 Hadith 96. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Ubaid's sad face. The slave of Ibn Azar. I witnessed the ID with Umar bin al-Khattab, who said, Allah's Messenger has forbidden people to fast on the day on which you break fasting, the fasts of Ramadan, and the day on which you eat the meat of your sacrifices, the first day of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Sahih al-Bukhari 1990 Reference 30 Hadith 97. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Sa'id. The Prophet forbade the fasting of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, 2 feast days, and also the wearing of his sama, a single garment covering the whole body, and sitting with one's leg drawn up while being wrapped in one garment. He also forbade the prayers after the Fajr, morning, and the Asr, afternoon, prayers. Sahih al-Bukhari 1991, 1992 Reference 30 Hadith 98. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Huraira. 2 fasts and 2 kinds of sale are forbidden. Fasting on the day of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, and the kinds of sale called Mulamasa and Munabada. These 2 kinds of sale used to be practiced in the days of pre-Islamic period of ignorance. Mulamasa means when you touch something displayed for sale you have to buy it. Munabada means when the seller throws something to you, you have to buy it. Sahih al-Bukhari 1993 Reference 30 Hadith 99. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ziyad bin Jubair. A man went to Ibn Umar the first and said, a man vowed to fast one day. The sub-narrator thinks that he said that the day was Monday, and that day happened to be Eid day. Ibn Umar said, Allah orders vows to be fulfilled and the Prophet forbade the fasting on this day, that is Eid. Sahih al-Bukhari 1994 Reference 30 Hadith 100. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri's sad face, who fought in 12 Ghazawat in the company of the Prophet. I heard 4 things from the Prophet and they won my admiration. He said, -1. No lady should travel on a journey of 2 days except with her husband or a dhi mahram. -2. No fasting is permissible on the 2 days of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. -3. No prayer may be offered after the morning compulsory prayer until the sun rises, and no prayer after the Asr prayer till the sun sets. -4. One should travel only for visiting 3 mosques, Masjid al-Haram, Mecca, Masjid al-Aqsa, Jerusalem, and this, my mosque, at Medina. Sahih al-Bukhari 1995 Reference 30 Hadith 101. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Yahya. Hisham said, my father said that Aisha used to observe Psalm, fast, on the days of Mina. that is, Hisham's, father also used to observe Sawm on those days. Sahih al-Bukhari 1996 reference 30 Hadith 102. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha and Ibn Umar. Nobody was allowed to fast on the days of Tashriq except those who could not afford the hadi, sacrifice. Sahih al-Bukhari 1997, 1998 reference 30 Hadith 103. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Umar. Fasting for those who perform Hajj at Tamattu, in lieu of the hadi which they cannot afford, may be performed up to the day of Arafat. And if one does not get a hadi and has not fasted before the Eid, then one should fast of the days of Mina, 11, 12 and 13th of Dhul Hijjah. Sahih al-Bukhari 1999 reference 30 Hadith 104. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Salim's father. The Prophet said, "Whoever wishes may fast on the day of Ashura." Sahih al-Bukhari 2000 reference 30 Hadith 105. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha. Allah's Messenger ordered the Muslims to fast on the day of Ashura, and when fasting in the month of Ramadan was prescribed, it became optional for one to fast on that day, Ashura, or not. Sahih al-Bukhari 2001 reference 30 Hadith 106. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Aisha. Quraysh used to fast on the day of Ashura in the pre-Islamic period, and Allah's Messenger too used to fast on that day. When he came to Medina, he fasted on that day and ordered others to fast too. Later, when the fasting of the month of Ramadan was prescribed, he gave up fasting on the day of Ashura and it became optional for one to fast on it or not. Sahih al-Bukhari 2002 reference 30 Hadith 107. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Humayd bin Abdur Rahman. That he heard Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan on the day of Ashura during the year he performed the Hajj, saying on the pulpit, "O the people of Medina, where are your religious scholars? I heard Allah's apostle saying, this is the day of Ashura. Allah has not enjoined its fasting on you, but I am fasting it. You have the choice either to fast or not to fast on this day." Sahih al-Bukhari 2003 reference 30 Hadith 108. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet came to Medina and saw the Jews fasting on the day of Ashura. He asked them about that. They replied, "This is a good day, the day on which Allah rescued Bani Israel from their enemy. So, Moses fasted this day." The Prophet said, "We have more claim over Moses than you." So, the Prophet fasted on that day and ordered the Muslims to fast on that day. Sahih al-Bukhari 2004 reference 30 Hadith 109. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Abu Musa. The day of Ashura was considered as Eid day by the Jews. So the Prophet ordered, "I recommend you, Muslims, to fast on this day." Sahih al-Bukhari 2005 reference 30 Hadith 110. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Ibn Abbas. I never saw the Prophet seeking to fast on a day that he favored more than another except this day, the day of Ashura, and this month, meaning the month of Ramadan. Sahih al-Bukhari 2006 reference 30 Hadith 111. Sahih al-Bukhari. Fasting narrated Salama bin al-Aqwa. The Prophet ordered a man from the tribe of Bani Aslam to announce amongst the people that whoever had eaten should fast the rest of the day, and whoever had not eaten should continue his fast, as that day was the day of Ashura. Sahih al-Bukhari 2007 reference 30 Hadith 112.